time to armor up and level out. Listen up and hear what we're about.
Welcome back to Armor Radio. Josh here with the fearless leader, Dustin Bass.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Welcome, sir. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank
is this
you.
You're the producer of this thing, and this is, you're on the talent side. Is this the first time?
It is.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. How exciting. How does it feel being on the other side of the camera?
I did my hair and my makeup today because I knew this was
You look
happening.
tan. The hair looks fantastic as always.
Yeah. Thank
so
you.
good.
Thank
Good.
you.
Why do you think you're here today? What are we going to talk about?
Thankfully, you briefed me for a quarter of a second.
I did. That's about all.
I had no
we
idea
here.
what we were going to talk about because I'm not fun or interesting at all. But
I bet a lot of people would think the opposite of that. I believe they would think that you're very generous. At least I think that you're very generous with your time.
Thanks.
You're actually very good at asking questions and being interested in other people, whether maybe that's fake. I don't think it's fake.
No,
I think it's for real. You seem very interested in other people, which is more rare today.
Yeah.
But like we talked about earlier, you're not here for that. You're not here for armor business, although that could be its own thing.
Yeah.
We could talk about armor, but not today. We're actually going to talk about a recent competition that you got into.
Yeah.
Can you tell me what that's all about?
Yeah. So almost a year ago, I started jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
1 year ago.
Almost 1 year.
Almost,
Yeah,
and then
like
you
9
started
months
fresh. This is like first time, essentially.
I had a couple years of MMA experience.
And doing what?
Just MMA, that's boxing, kickboxing, grappling.
Okay.
We didn't do a lot of grappling.
Okay.
So I didn't really have a whole lot going in. I just kind of knew a little bit basic positions.
Okay. Okay. And then you started jiu-jitsu
Yep.
a year ago.
About 9 months.
For pretty much fresh.
Yep.
Okay. And we're just talking about, tell me what just jiu-jitsu is. So what's just the BJJ you're talking about?
Yeah, so when I explain it to people that have no idea what I'm talking about, they think a martial art is any kind of striking like you see on the UFC, right?
This isn't that.
No.
Okay.
I just say it looks like wrestling. It's very similar to wrestling, except in wrestling, you don't necessarily like submit people with like a submission. Your goal
Wrestling
to
is
get
based
their,
on points, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
and to get their back on the ground.
Yep.
In jiu-jitsu, you want your back on the ground at certain points. And
there's no points taken away for that, or no points awarded for being on your back.
Sometimes if you play, there's two different types of jiu-jitsu. It's like submission or like a points.
Okay. Which one did you do?
I did submission only.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's more noble.
Is it? Okay. Okay. Would there be? Are there athletes who do both?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting way. I've actually never heard of the point system of it.
Yeah.
I've only been aware of submission. But just so we're clear, if I watch Ultimate Fighting, I'm gonna see guys getting kicked in the face.
Yep.
You're not doing that.
No.
Okay.
I'm doing one aspect of what you see on the UFC.
Okay.
So I'm doing the grappling part.
Okay, so if I watch UFC and I see that the training that would have comprised that sort of athlete is going to be a lot of throwing hands, a lot of kicks, but then also the component of what you're talking about,
Right.
which is the jiu-jitsu,
Right.
which is mostly on the ground.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
What drew you to that to begin with 9 months ago?
Man, when I first started, really, it sparked it from when I started martial arts in general. When I did MMA, I walked into my first class, and my coach, his name's Joey, he looked kind of like someone that if I was walking down the street, I'd look at him and be like, I could take that guy. That's how most people are like, yeah, I could take that guy. He was probably 240 pounds, 6'3", glasses, just kind of looked a little nerdy. Like he knows that he looked nerdy, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And I think any kind of male would think, oh, I could take that guy.
Okay.
He looked completely out of shape, beer belly. He knows this stuff too. I even told him I was pretty surprised at his capabilities. But he trained OSP, the UFC fighter in Knoxville.
Oh, okay.
And I didn't really know that at the time, but when I first sparred with him, I couldn't touch the guy.
Okay.
I mean, the guy
You mean specifically sparred on the ground?
I couldn't even punch him.
Oh,
I couldn't
okay.
punch him. I couldn't kick him. I couldn't tackle him. Every time I tried to, I'd get punched in the face.
Okay.
And it was the moment of realization that somebody with a little bit of experience I couldn't do anything. A lot of people in jiu-jitsu say it's like magic.
Yeah.
When you first go in, it's like, man, how does this even work?
Yeah.
How are you able to do that?
Yeah.
It's so fun. It's so fun to realize that you could be incapable of defending yourself. And
did you do it more for? Did you originally start out more for like a confidence inspiration thing? Like you wanted confidence in life,
right?
Or did you start out where it was like kind of like you're talking about, like I want to have a sense of security? Like what made you start originally?
My first thought of starting it was as I know I'd be getting married soon. I know that I'd be a family man. I think as the male in the household, I need to be able to defend me and my family. I know that I wouldn't be able to do that until I started to get really uncomfortable and do that kind of stuff. And
what made you go with jiu-jitsu? Is it because, and you hear this a lot, is it because every fight's going to end up on the ground? Or is it, why didn't you just box?
My excuse was I hated getting punched in the face.
Most people do.
After class, man, it was headaches all the time. It was my neck hurting, even worse than it is right now in jiu-jitsu. I just hated getting, and if you've never been kicked in the leg by someone who knows how to kick, dude, you have no idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
Talk about debilitating.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
100%. Okay. So what if today, you went there to get a sense of security, to maybe with family in mind, not just yourself.
Yeah.
Maybe in a good space. That sounds like a good space as opposed to somebody who just wants to fight people.
Yeah.
But so if you did it that way, what if somebody today tries to kick you in the leg outside of the realm of competition, just in the street, in the wild? Or
thankfully, I know how to check a leg, so I know how to defend it. Because I had a couple years of martial arts, thankfully.
Got it.
But I do think that if your goal is to be able to defend yourself and maybe other people around you, you need to probably add in those other aspects, because jiu-jitsu is only good for
being on the ground.
Yeah, certain
Now,
things.
if you get to a certain point in jiu-jitsu, though, and we can talk about sort of how the evolution of that, but if you get into a certain point in jiu-jitsu and then somebody does start throwing hands at you, there's a really good chance that the guy with jiu-jitsu, and correct me if I'm wrong, is going to be in a really good spot. Like maybe you eat one, but after that, if you get the guy on the ground, if like you said, if there's even a marginal, in my experience, if there's even a marginal level of experience on the ground competing with somebody who has zero, that guy is hands down going to get that.
Definitely.
Okay.
I love, Jocko was on a podcast, Jocko Willing. I love the guy. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu and motivational speaker. He's got great companies. Anyways.
Supplements, jeans, gosh, what
everything.
Does this guy have? Yeah.
He's awesome.
Shoes.
People were talking to him on a podcast. What is the best martial art to take? In his opinion, it is jiu-jitsu. Yeah. But you should also learn other. But if you had to pick one, it was jiu-jitsu. The reason being is if he's walking down the street and someone wants to fight, I'm coming up in your face, or you're coming up in my face. The best thing for me to do is look at you and just walk away. Like, hey man, I don't want to fight.
Sure.
I don't want to fight.
Sure.
Walk away. I mean, that's all you can do, right?
Yeah.
But he says, but the second you put your hand on my shoulder and you make it physical, it's go time.
Yeah.
And that's when he's capable. Because like if someone wants to throw a punch, you can just walk away. You can run.
Yeah.
But if they're chasing you and they put a hand on you, that's when your jiu-jitsu, you can start to use it.
That's when that kicks in.
You can start to go to the ground. Or,
And then once you're on the ground, you know what you're doing.
Exactly.
Not only you're more comfortable, but the other person probably feels way out of water because they didn't really want to go on the ground unless they had the experience.
Exactly.
There's a big learning curve.
Definitely.
To jiu-jitsu, huge, in fact.
Yes,
did you feel when you first started into jiu-jitsu? Did you feel like, man, I'm never gonna get any of this? Did you feel like this is great? I'm just learning everything I want to know, just like a fire hydrant, just keep pouring this in.
Yeah, jiu-jitsu is a story for everyone. It's like a journey. Like your first 3 months, you finish your class and then you go to the shower and cry because you're so helpless.
Yeah.
And it's that moment of being, it's the months of being humbled, thinking like, man, I'm trying so hard, but I still can't do anything. Yeah. That over and over again, you go, there's several days where you just go in the shower and cry.
Dustin, how old are you?
25.
So you started jiu-jitsu when you're 24, essentially.
Yeah.
How is it starting something brand new, essentially, when you're 24 and essentially you could look at that like, oh man, I've had 24 years to do this and I haven't, I'm way behind the curve. How is it starting something like that at that point?
You got to start somewhere. I actually joined, my father-in-law, he's 52, and he had a few months of it under his belt. but he started the same thing at 52.
Wow.
So somebody, you got to start some. If you want to do something, just start it. I mean,
Okay. And what would you say to somebody who's listening to this and they've been on the edge and now they're just that little bit more motivation to get started into jiu-jitsu? What would you say is the right way to approach that situation of knowing absolutely nothing?
Yeah.
And maybe even like an Armor Gym, when you
Yeah.
come in here, you've never done anything ever.
Yeah.
How do you get over that intimidation of starting something at 24 or 52?
yeah, I would ask somebody that is already experienced in that field when it comes to jiu-jitsu. Hopefully you can find somebody that knows it or has done it before. Because I think with martial arts, there's a big intimidation factor. Like, I don't want to go there and get hurt.
Yeah.
You know?
So tell me about that. So when you go to a do you call it school?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you go to a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu school, what should I look for? Should I look for a place that's gonna, I don't want, maybe I'm speaking out of turn, throw me in with a whole bunch of white belts, or should I look for a place where somebody higher up's gonna take me in? Is this something I could do, pay a coach for individually? Like, what do you recommend?
I mean, if you're able to pay coach for one-on-one, that'll be the fastest way you excel.
Are there coaches that do that?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what's that look like? Is that like, because the coach has to do it with you.
Yeah.
This isn't like what we would consider coaching. Like, I don't work out with my athletes. I coach them.
Right.
But this is like the guys got to be on the ground with you.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
definitely. Yep.
Okay.
And they'll have like another person with them sometimes too. Because if you're showing somebody something, if you're doing it to them, it's hard to see it if it's getting done to you.
Where do you do jiu-jitsu at?
Resolute Martial Arts in Oak Ridge.
Okay. Got it. And they obviously have a class structure.
Yep.
I take it, which looks like you would imagine a
Yep.
whole bunch of people
Yep.
doing stuff, guided by an instructor or instructors.
Yep.
And then they also have one-on-one like you're talking about.
Yep.
Okay, so you do that and you get the peace of mind. And how often do you do that each week?
How often do I go to
How
class?
often do you train? Yeah.
Monday through Saturday.
Every day?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
5:30, yeah.
Wow. That's
I'm addicted.
yeah,
right now.
that's pretty specific. With that kind of time, can you tell? So it's a belt system.
Yeah.
What belt are you?
I'm still white.
Okay,
Yeah.
and it takes a really long. If I'm not mistaken, how long does it take to become an upper echelon which is black belt, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
The average to get to blue belt is 2 years. 2 years total. To purple belt, it's about like 5. Brown is about like 8, and then black is typically it's like 10 to 15.
That's a long time.
Out of all of the martial arts, the black belt in jiu-jitsu is harder to get, or takes the longest amount of time to get, versus karate, taekwondo, any kind of belt system martial art.
Why is that?
How Jocko says it, it's like learning a new language. It is still getting developed to this day. There are still different techniques being developed to this day. We took this from Brazil, I think less than 100 years ago. So now it's come to the United States. It's still just getting developed over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So it's a constant learning thing. And it's just a new language. Like your first 4 months, like the word yellow, park, and alphabet. That's about it.
And that's all you got.
Yeah. And
But
then
you still go into either a class or a session, and you're humble enough to know only that, and be humbled maybe even that much more.
Correct.
Like you said, by somebody who may look nerdy, by somebody who may be much smaller than you, by somebody who may appear out of shape.
A female.
Yeah.
I mean, getting dominated by a female.
Yeah.
Most males are gonna be like,
No way.
I'm not coming back to this.
Yeah, no way.
But some that are humble are like, man, I got to learn more of this. Like, this is awesome. And good job, by the way. Like, this is cool.
That sounds cool.
Yeah.
But tell me, so you went in with all of these ideas
Yeah.
in terms of safety, maybe protecting the family, like all these noble. That's a good way to put it. But then you competed. That doesn't sound like a natural extension in terms of I went in for this. That sounds like a whole other thing.
Yeah.
What made you want to compete?
My family, my brother-in-law, he said he was going to do it. So I was like, man, I guess I have to.
Okay.
I want to at least do it a couple of times just for the experience of it. I haven't competed since like soccer in high school. So, and it creates you enter into this new mindset for yourself.
Yeah.
I think, in my opinion, like I was a little bit more focused on my nutrition. Like I love to have a margarita with my wife.
Yeah.
A few nights a week.
Yeah.
During my phase of training, I didn't because I knew I would feel horrible the next day. And whenever we did King of the Hill wrestling on Saturdays, I was on the verge of throwing up.
What's King of the Hill?
If you tap somebody, you stay in the bill. If they tap you, they replace you.
Gotcha.
But it's just like conditioning.
Sure. Yeah, big time.
Yeah,
big time. So you could be essentially going up against multiple competitors in one session, one round,
Definitely,
whatever you want to call it. Okay. Okay. So tell me what I know obviously MMA. Watched everything of that, and then I know wrestling. But what's a jiu-jitsu specific competition look like?
Yeah, so there's several federations like ADCC. I believe they're more point oriented. I went to something called Good Fight. It's a smaller federation, but it's a submission only federation. But basically they separate it by white belt, blue belt, purple belt, brown belt, black belt. They also separate it by age.
So you're only going to go up against another white belt?
Correct.
Okay, got it.
Also by age. So mine was from 16 years old to 29 years old. And then it was 30 years old to 45, and then 46 to up.
Senior. Okay, got it.
And then also by weight.
Age, rank, and weight. Okay, so what's the weight classes look like in jiu-jitsu? How many are there? What's it like?
The lowest was 120, 135 and below.
Okay.
And then it goes by about 20-pound increments all the way up to 206 to open.
Okay.
So,
yeah, so that's interesting. So that's quite a few weight classes. That's quite a few divisions.
Yep.
That to me, that sounds like that would be a long day. How many competitions or how many what is it called, match? Do you call them matches? How many matches are going on at the same time?
At ours, we had 4 mats going pretty much at all times.
Got it.
I think with bigger federations, there's probably more. I've seen pretty large gyms with a lot of different mats and videos. So I think the bigger the federation, the more that they have going on.
Okay. How long? What's a match? What do we got?
It's longer the higher you are belt wise. So for white belt, it's a 6-minute match nonstop. Blue
6
belt,
minutes. There's no timeouts. There's no corner time. There's nothing like that. You just got 6 minutes to submit. What happens if you don't?
You go to overtime rounds.
Oh, okay. So there is more if nobody
is.
gets submitted. Okay. What's an overtime round look like?
There's 3 different overtime rounds typically.
Okay.
Again, it changes for federation, but basically you start in a positional spar. So, for example, my 6 minutes are done. He starts on my back and tries to choke me from my back. If I'm able to escape the back, which is a position, I then start on his back. If I can submit him, I win the match. How
is it dictated that he gets what would be the opportune position over you, or you get it over him in overtime?
It's kind of hard to talk about, but it's kind of like we call it like a seatbelt position. If his legs are on my legs, and his arms are around my chest, if I'm able to get myself out of a position of potentially getting submitted, from the back.
But you're already put into a disadvantageous position.
Extremely.
How is that decided to actually get to there?
I see. The federation decides for ours the overtime rounds were back take, arm bar, and triangle.
Got it. But how would you get to be in the disadvantaged position specifically?
We switch. So for every round, it's like he starts my back, and I start on his back.
Okay, understood.
If we both don't submit, then we go to arm bar.
Okay.
And if we both don't submit again, then we go to triangle. If we both don't submit, then we go to it's called sudden death.
Yeah.
And it's the first person to take down the other wins.
Oh wow. How did it go for you? So tell me about your first match. How many matches did you do?
There was 5 people in my weight class.
Okay.
I went twice.
Went twice?
Yep.
What happened in the first one?
My first one went into overtime.
First overtime?
We went to second overtime.
Second overtime, so that was armbar?
Armbar.
Okay, and then what happened?
Thankfully, I escaped his armbar.
Okay, yeah.
And then whenever I started in his armbar, I got him pretty good.
Okay, well, good.
Yeah.
Good. So you won.
Yeah.
Okay, so you won the first match. How was it walking out first time? I'm assuming there's a crowd competing for the first time.
Extremely. The adrenaline dump was absolutely insane. And I'm curious to know, like, you did CrossFit and bodybuilding. I'd be curious if the adrenaline dump was similar for you, because I've never experienced anything like that before in my whole entire life.
Yeah, CrossFit for sure.
Really?
Yeah, tremendous. Yeah, you had to learn how to do that. Bodybuilding, not so much. You're so dieted down and dehydrated and hating life or loving what you're doing that you're just like, your blinders on. But CrossFit for sure.
So like for us, it was I mean, every Saturday we spar for an hour and a half straight, pretty much. Almost 2 hours every Saturday.
And you probably got pretty good about not being nervous about that.
Right.
Yeah, but then
Until
when you go out there,
you're in front of people, and there's also a thing with martial arts is when in competition, you're afraid of someone hurting you. So for you to be able to react fast enough, it's you either tap or you submit them faster and potentially hurt them. And that's the hurting thing is only in competition because you're going so fast because you don't want them to be able to escape a submission.
Sure.
So you go a little bit faster. You bring
So
up the pace.
the chance for injury in competition is obviously higher than training. Okay, got it. Which is with everything, but when you're intentionally putting somebody in a submissive position through pain, then it really ratchets up the chance for injury. Have you ever been injured through jiu-jitsu?
Yeah.
Okay, what happened?
It was actually in training. This guy got me in an arm bar, which is basically a hyperextended position for your elbow.
For the elbow, okay.
And I was being ignorant and
Didn't tap.
ego, and I didn't tap, and he tore a tendon in my elbow.
Oh, wow, okay. Did you repair that? Did you?
Yeah,
Okay.
Thankfully my wife's a physical therapist assistant.
That is good,
And she was able to rehab it. It took about 7 weeks for it to feel like back to normal.
Yeah, okay. So you win that first match.
Yep.
What did you learn from the first time walking out on the mat that you want to adjust potentially for future competitions? That adrenaline, that feeling.
Breathing is so important.
Tell me more about that.
Man. And it's the same thing with working out here. Being able to breathe correctly is so important in every aspect, like all your different zones of like cardiovascular conditioning. For me, it was breathing. I'm really good at breathing, especially in martial arts. It's having a mouthpiece helps. But when I was thinking about several different things, I started to lose that focus on my breathing, especially because, again, it's just adrenaline.
Will you compete more to help practice that, or are you going to start breath training specifically for that?
I definitely will compete more just for the fact that I know that adrenaline dump will happen again if there is a situation where I need to defend myself and other people. I do think that adrenaline dump will happen again in that moment. So I personally would like to train to have that same adrenaline dump.
Okay.
I'm still trying to figure out how I can re-imitate that adrenaline dump without a competition. That's something that I'm asking around about because it's something that will change the game completely for you.
Okay.
Is there something that you could do for CrossFit Games that?
When you mean to actually, when you're going to go compete in CrossFit, like you want to calm a lot of that down.
Right.
The goal is not to be so red line that you're losing your mind. Just with most competitions, it's interesting that you're talking about a competition where you're going against another person. Right. You're going against another man.
Yeah.
There's again a nobility to that. I love that with MMA. I think a lot of people do.
Sure.
I think it's interesting, and I would like for you to answer the question. What gives you that strength of character and of mind to do that? But just speaking about CrossFit specifically, you're just you. You're just surrounded by other people. You're going against the clock. You're not going against another person. So I would say that what you did was much more complicated than CrossFit, just because of that one thing. You're going against another person that trying to take your head off is not necessarily the right way to put it, but it's close to that.
Yeah.
They want you to submit.
Yeah.
So like I said, what gives you that strength of character to be able to do that?
I gotta get better. I want to get better going against other people.
Most people say they want to get better.
Yeah.
But they don't go do what you did.
Right.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think is that's deep within you, deep seated, that makes you say it and then follow through with it?
I've just found the need to really I don't know. I guess that's a mental shift that I've had to get in my head because I know it was going to be scary. So the day that I was like, all right, I am going to compete, it took do I really want to compete? Or, yeah, I'm going to compete. You just got to say it to yourself, and I don't want to lie to myself, so I need to do it.
I think that's big. I think that I don't want to lie to myself thing because here's what I think people, and you correct me if I'm wrong, there's this big tendency, I want to do hard things and I want to do difficult stuff. Like getting cold in a shower is great, but that's not really that hard. Let's really talk about that. That's not really that hard. Yeah. Now, getting on a mat with another person who is legitimately trying to make you hurt, that's a whole other level.
Yeah.
So I think that that's exactly right, and I think that you don't want to lie to yourself. You know it's important. You've recognized the importance, and then you don't stop until you get there.
Right.
That's big.
Right.
So then tell me what happened. You had another match.
Yep.
Okay, what happened then?
Yeah, so he was actually from my school. We were competing for first and second place because we both beat guys and they were eliminated.
These were guys from another school?
Yeah.
Okay.
So he's from my school. We go to the same school, and we start. We go into first overtime, and I lose. So the 6 minutes. I keep saying this because he knows this too. I was all over him, like the full first 6 minutes. And again, that adrenaline dump absolutely got me during the overtime round. It was like,
You just got tired.
man, on the last minute, from minute 5 to minute 6, I was battling in my head. I was so tired that I was like, I was on top of him, like in a turtle position. I was in the advantage position, and I was still in the last minute. I was saying, I'm gonna tap. I'm so tired. I'm gonna tap. But I kept having to battle that in my head. Like, man, I could win this. I really could win this. And I'm here. I'm so scared in my mind of being so tired that I was going to tap even though I was winning.
Oh, wow. But
Man,
you didn't.
I didn't. But I did lose in the first overtime round.
But, I mean, you wanted to quit. There's the feeling that everybody has in every competition that I've ever been in, and you didn't.
Yes.
That's big.
I think that was a mental win for me, too.
Oh, huge.
I think in competitions, there's a lot of bodybuilders here, and I'm sure you can attest to this, but there's so many moments where you want to quit that it's a kind of a competition with yourself that you want to beat. Like, you don't, like, when you're in prep, man, you don't want to stop. Like, you're already there.
Yeah.
Like, if you face yourself, it's like, it's overcoming too.
Here's what's interesting about that. The bodybuilding, I don't know of anybody. I loved being on stage, and stage takes 2 minutes. Like, it's nothing. Right? So, like, what you're talking about, the really, really, training's obviously very hard, but that's very enjoyable with what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But your really, really hard part was the stage, was the mat, right?
Yeah.
Like in bodybuilding, it's not the exact same thing, because the hard part is the everyday in the kitchen and the eating and the trying to sleep. And again, there are things that are hard, and when you're just eating 500 calories less than what you were before, let's not like overcomplicate that.
Sure.
Compared to what you did, and having done both of them, I would say that what you did is much harder. Now, the bodybuilders may get mad at me for that. Again, like, it sucks eating the exact same thing every single day if you're not used to it. But getting on the mat, there's a reason why there's not a lot of people that doing that. So don't sell yourself short on that. Like, that's big.
I appreciate it.
And then getting to I know exactly what that feels like when you get to that one point where you're so tired you don't even know what you're going to do, and then you kept going.
Yeah.
That's big.
I think I gained a little bit more respect for people that do this even more often than I do when it comes to martial arts and bodybuilding and CrossFit, because I know those CrossFit competitions are brutal.
Yeah, it's a monster to go from workout to workout. Again, it's physically demanding, it's mentally challenging. There's all these things that come with it. What did you do in between matches? Like, were you tired because you didn't hydrate well? Were you tired because you're exhausted from the adrenaline? Like, what do you think it was? And then what would you change for the next time?
I think I did everything right.
Okay.
I asked for a lot of advice, at least the day of the competition.
Okay. So hydrated, you had food in between, I would imagine, some sort of recovery?
Dusty was kind of giving me some advice on the day of eating before and the day of.
Smart, very smart.
To help me, the nerves, especially, I needed to battle those. So it was between the nerves. If I ate, I trained in 5:30 a.m., so I never eat beforehand, and my matches weren't until 3 p.m. So I had to ask him, I was like, man, what do I do?
Got to eat.
And I don't want to eat and get sick because of my nerves and the training. So that part was a little, I think I did everything as best as I could.
Will you adjust anything moving forward?
I just got to find the adrenaline piece. I got to be able to mimic that. That was the only thing holding me back.
A lot of competitors are going to tell you the breath work's great, but it's more and more doing it. You got to get a little bit more experience with it. You got to do it over and over and over again until it's a little bit deadened. But like you said, it's never going to go away.
Yeah.
That's kind of one of the features of it, is that it's there and that you learn how to deal with it. And that's another reason why most people don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Or they touch into it and then they never want to do it again. Mm-hmm. Do you know when your next competition is?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
I think
Are we looking at 3 months, 6 months? What's a season? I don't really know how that works.
They're all the time.
Okay.
Because they're indoors. There's
Okay.
not really anything stopping.
There's not like a season though to something like that. It's
No,
kind of just whenever the federation wants to.
Yeah, at least
to
in
host it.
jiu-jitsu. I think wrestling might be different because like schools, like high schools do it.
Sure.
But as far as like jiu-jitsu, different schools are going all the time. So
Okay.
federation is doing it. I think probably within the next 6 months I'll do another one. I think
another.
there's one in September that I might go to. I don't know.
Is it something that you is your everyday training always training to that? Meaning, like, if you just heard of one that's in a month, you could just drop in and do it. Is that beneficial? Is that not advantageous to you?
You can do that.
Yeah.
I think there's more benefit into preparing for something. Like you don't see bodybuilders just go into a competition left and right because it's hard to stay. It's different, but it's hard to stay peeled all the time.
There's definitely a different piece of that, but still what you normally see out of bodybuilders is they try to have a season where they could compete a little bit more often at one specific time, and then they get pictures at one specific time. Like you really do try to jam it all into one spot so that you can not only heal and recover but get more muscular, whatever that may be later on.
Yeah. For us, it was we set a date. Our instructor was like, "Hey, you guys want to do this?" We're like, "Yeah." And then we trained specifically for that date.
The whole school, essentially.
Our morning class. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. For the most part, whoever was going to do it was training for that.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what will you change about your training? Is there anything, or do you just keep doing it like you're doing it?
I will go at a faster pace more often. Like whenever you train, at least me, if we train on Saturdays for 2 hours, I keep it about like 70 to 80%.
So that you can keep going.
So I can keep going.
Yeah.
Because I was going 100 to 110%, absolutely giving it my all, I was not necessarily, my body wasn't ready for that. And it never was because I never trained 100%.
Yeah.
So I will train.
Will you adjust your training outside of jiu-jitsu? Meaning, will you do more cardiovascular training? Will you do more road work? Will you lift more weights? Like, is there anything that will change outside of that?
Dusty's been programming me for like some functional training.
Yeah, that's awesome. He's a good programmer.
So I will probably amp up a little bit more of my strength training when I'm not preparing for a competition.
Okay. Did you feel like you were ready in terms of strength?
I mean,
you could always be stronger. 100%. Everybody's gonna say that. Yeah, 100%.
I'd love to be stronger.
But did you get into a spot where you're like, man, I'm weak. I'm not gonna be able to do this, or was it more like I'm tired?
Oh, that's so hard to answer because there were some big guys there. There's like the guy.
I saw the picture.
25 pounds heavier than me. Man.
Yeah, I was gonna say you were a little guy. You were a little guy compared to some of those dudes.
It was hard. So I'd love to be stronger. Jiu-jitsu will show you that you need mobility. I think personally, I think you need mobility. When I was doing CrossFit for a while before, like really preparing for jiu-jitsu, and it really translated. So I was more mobile than other people. But man, mobility is so important in jiu-jitsu, especially.
How do you define mobility?
For jiu-jitsu, if you get put in a position that you're supposed to be in that other people are doing and you can't, like hips are big in jiu-jitsu.
Got it.
I definitely think you'll realize that you're not very mobile.
Got it.
Did that answer your question?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I'm just curious.
Yeah.
I'm just curious. So some people will think mobility is flexible, is your ability to get to end range. Other people will think mobility is the strength at that end range. You know, like if you get into an arm bar that's above your head, but you're not used to being above your head, then it's game over because you can't get your arm above your head, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Would you say that CrossFit transfers over best? Would you say that CrossFit is the art and the method that transfers over best to jiu-jitsu?
If I had to pick one, yes, definitely.
Yeah, okay.
For sure.
Got it. But also just general strength.
Man, yes.
Okay.
Even though it's more of a functional program,
Yeah.
I'm still doing CrossFit-like conditioning.
Got it.
You know, like,
So deadlifts, squats,
yes,
so on and so forth. Yeah.
Some overhead press.
Yeah.
A lot. It's usually a press day, a hinge day.
Is there a movement that I could do in armor that you would think that would be the best movement to transfer to jiu-jitsu?
Oh, that's hard.
Doesn't necessarily need to be for just you, maybe across the board, or like you're like, hey man, sitting in the bottom of the squat, open my hips up, like that's the one. Or learning the front squat because it's hitting more hip, more ankle, more. I might be leading the witness here. More rack position. Is there anything that you think of that would be more transferable or not?
Ooh, that's hard.
It's okay if not.
I'm not exercise expert,
Okay.
but I've really enjoyed Turkish get-ups recently. It's a very functional movement.
Yeah.
And it works a lot of muscles at different times or at the same time
Yeah.
in one single exercise. I've really enjoyed that recently. man, it's hard to put one exercise on it though.
That's actually a brilliant comment. That does every plane of motion. So
Yeah.
you got your sagittal, your frontal, and your transverse
Yeah.
plane. So that's one of the rare exercises that sort of does it all and looks very much like some positions you'll find
Yeah.
when you're on your back or whatnot. If I was the guy that's wanting to compete or that wanting to do something, let's just call it something out of my comfort zone, even if it's not a competition with another guy, but I'm on the fence, what would you tell me to get me to do it?
Is it bad if I say YOLO? Do people say that anymore?
I haven't heard it in like 15 years, but I mean,
that's the first thing that came to my mind was YOLO. Like, man, just do it. I think you would regret it if you didn't do it.
That's
I
great.
know that I would have regretted it if I went and saw my brother-in-law compete and I should have been the one up there too. Like, just do it, man. You got nothing to lose. Have fun, man. Enjoy it. Like, I had fun in my competition. I think if you were on the fence about competing in CrossFit, or if you were on the fence about like a bodybuilding or a powerlifting thing, I think you would regret it if you just didn't do it.
Well, I'm proud of you. I think
you.
you did great. I think I can speak for the Armor Nation that we're all proud of you.
Thanks.
And thank you for today.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate it.